So yeah, this is Chatbot IRL. I'm lucky to have a pretty varied career in tech. Obviously AV isn't one of those skills, but I've worked along a bunch of other things. This is a bunch of other things I don't do very well, but I've got enough of a background in them that I can sound informed. And my sort of strong point is actually kind of sitting in the middle with connecting people with things and talking about tech and acting as a bit of interpreter. It's a little bit like a horse whisperer, but there's fewer romantic rides of a sunset evening. Anyway, I'm here to talk about chatbots. They've had a huge spike this year. They actually peaked sometime around mid this year for some strange reason. And they're a really great way of offloading all your sort of mundane questions and queries that you have for, Commonwealth Bank have one, Telstra have one, sales chatbots. AWS has one. Chat-ops, which I haven't used, but it sounds like other people have, which is kind of cool. But they all suffer from one thing. They're a little bit dry. They're kind of boring. And one thing that people who know what is cool is kids. Kids know what's cool. And they'll tell you that robots look like this. So I decided to make a chatbot in real life. This is Frank. Frank's a robot. He looks like a tank and he's all black, which automatically makes him cool. And he runs a microcontroller and a bunch of other bits and pieces. And you can interact with him right now on Twitch, assuming my EC2 instance hasn't died, because DevOps is almost as tricky as AV. How does Frank work? So Frank uses a bunch of resources in the back end. Twitch has got a pretty good developer support. And essentially, I have an EC2 instance that connects through to Twitch as an IRC client. It sits there, monitors the chat, passes messages through over MQTT to an ESP32 that runs Frank. So the chatbot itself is pretty straightforward. You can steal 90% of that from GitHub, but basically it's running Python with async IO, and it's monitoring for chat commands that match a certain criteria. And when it does that, it pushes out a message on a topic. So here, our topic is Frank action, and it's got a number of options. So it's actually doing motion and a number of parameters for the motors. It's really handy if you can actually offload some of this stuff to, say, your Python or your environments that are easier to develop on, because iterating firmware and flashing firmware is painful and slow. Iterating Python code is much easier, so it's sometimes a lot easier if you can work out your parameters and just push them across. The brain is an ESP32. I like them because they're cheap, just like me. They run about $9, cheaper in bulk, much cheaper than Raspberry Pis, but you can't run Greengrass, so instead you run FreeRTOS. FreeRTOS essentially is the free real-time operating system. It sits on top of the microcontroller, and this one also uses Arduino with it as well, because again, I'm lazy and it's really easy to work with. It means you can actually decode JSON a bit nicer. But we run a bunch of tasks in queue, so it actually allows us to do multiple processes on a microcontroller. Makes life a fair bit easier, and you can start to do things like queues. So we have our callback for our topic that we've subscribed to, runs a callback function, and then that can decode it and pass it into the relevant task control queues for the different peripherals. I'm online, like everyone else with an opinion, but I actually really enjoy collaborating and solving problems, so I'd encourage you to reach out. And because I've got 2 seconds left, if my thing works, that AV thing is really hard. There we are. Oh, it's cancelled. Apparently I streamed too long. Thanks, everyone.